All right, guys. So today I wanted to just kind of look back on a pretty crazy event that happened in the NFL back in 2019 and kind of reflect, where are we now? What does everyone think of this? Kind of look back at the outrage because, now that we all live with social media and things like that, it's pretty remarkable to see the people and their kind of instant reactions to certain events and how crazy it is and, what actually happened with Myles Garrett in the Browns-Steelers game on Thursday Night Football in November of 2019. Last play of the game, Myles Garrett ends up tackling Mason Rudolph, pretty hard. Well after Mason Rudolph throws, he was throwing like a little screen pass, and then, the Steelers offensive linemen take offense to it. They get in Myles Garrett's face. He grabs a hold of Mason Rudolph's face mask, rips his helmet off, and then Mason Rudolph goes and charges at Myles Garrett as there's two Steelers offensive linemen in the way, and then Myles Garrett flails the helmet over his head and nails Mason Rudolph in the face. Now, just kind of thinking back to this whole incident, Myles Garrett is real lucky. And I gotta be honest, guys, I'm gonna show everything, but Myles Garrett looks like a total POS after this entire thing, to be completely honest. Now, when it comes to Myles Garrett being lucky, we hear about fights all the time. I'm sure you guys have. I have, where there'll be two drunk guys at a bar. They take it outside. One of the drunk guys, punches the other guy in the face. And what do you know? It hits him in the right spot of the temple. He's paralyzed or he's dead. And even though you were drunk and it was a drunk fight and you both were fighting each other, the dude who hits the other guy and paralyzes him, he goes to jail and he gets charged, and it's a real bad situation. So for Myles Garrett to be sober in an NFL game and do that and with a helmet, he's very lucky that Mason Rudolph did not have any type of serious brain injury, because he would be he'd be done that would be the last time he would play in the NFL. Imagine Mason Rudolph got paralyzed from that. I'm not saying it's likely, but I've heard of situations where you do a lot less. Just a punch can seriously F someone up. But the reaction to it on the internet: Cleveland Browns cheap shot artist Myles Garrett belongs in prison. Forget suspension for Myles Garrett. This is a criminal act. If that's outside of the stadium, you're going to have to deal with the district attorney's office. That's assault with a deadly weapon. So there were people just going crazy on this, saying that Myles Garrett should get banned from the NFL. People always go crazy on social media. The instant reaction is always, when they see something they're not used to seeing, it's always like, what do we do? And no one really knows how to act. So, I knew as long as Mason Rudolph was going to have no, actual damage when it comes to like a brain injury or anything like that, they were going to suspend Myles Garrett, but that was pretty much going to be the end of it. And that's basically what happened. Myles Garrett ended up getting suspended for 6 games. But, you even had James Harrison calling out that Myles Garrett should be in jail. He tweeted, "That's assault at the very least, 6 months in jail on the street. Now add the weapon. That's at least a year, right?" And then, of course, how could we not include this tweet? Assault from Adam Schefter. And I think Adam Schefter also tweeted something out. He was like, Myles Garrett did the unthinkable or something in a video. Very thankful Rudolph is okay. Myles Garrett should not play in the NFL for the rest of the season, and that's a minimum. Don't embarrass the Shield. He should have criminal charges pressed on him. The Haslam family, who owns the Browns, should take it upon themselves before Goodell does. So people, reacting to this situation seems pretty crazy now. And then Myles Garrett actually came out about 4 months later in February of 2020 and said that Mason Rudolph called him a stupid N-word right before the brawl. So at this point, people were really pissed off at Myles Garrett. What do you did he have roid rage? What was that? Because it just seemed like at the end of the game, he just tackled Mason Rudolph for no reason when there was no time left and the Browns were going to win. And, you swing the helmet like that, that's ridiculous. So Myles Garrett says he called me the N-word And immediately people were like, there's no way. This is what Myles Garrett said. He said, when he said it, it kind of sparked something, but I still tried to let it go and still walk away. But once he came back, it kind of reignited the situation. And not only have you escalated things past what they needed to be with such little time in the game left, but now you're trying to re-engage and start a fight again. It's definitely not entirely his fault. It's definitely both parties doing something that we shouldn't have been doing. So it really kind of seems like Myles Garrett is trying to deflect blame here. Say, yeah, I swung a helmet and used it as a weapon over my head. And I mean, Myles Garrett should honestly just shut up about the situation. He got very lucky that Mason Rudolph wasn't severely injured, because that could have been about 100 times worse. And then Myles Garrett later said, I don't say the N-word, whether it's with an A or an ER. To me personally, just shouldn't be said. And whether it's by family, friends, or anyone, I don't want to use it because I don't want people finding it appropriate to use around me. In November, Garrett said Rudolph directed a racial slur at him before the brawl during an NFL appeals hearing. And apparently an NFL spokesman, Brian McCarthy, said the league found no such evidence. And then you can see this headline, the NFL, this came out like 2 days after Myles Garrett did an interview with ESPN. NFL denies Myles Garrett claim that Mason Rudolph's slur audio is being withheld. So Myles Garrett claimed, I think, that NFL Films, because that was a primetime game. If you guys remember, it was a Thursday night game. So, it could pick it up easily. I don't think anyone was mic'd up, or I don't know, maybe someone was mic'd up. Either way, Myles Garrett said that, you can hear him saying the N-word, and the NFL said, no, we don't have that evidence. Myles Garrett could be sued for N-word claim. According to Mason Rudolph's agent, Garrett could be held liable for claim over racial slur, agent says. And then Myles Rudolph comes out and tweets, 1,000% false, bold-faced lie. I did not, have not, and would not utter a racial slur. This is a disgusting and reckless attempt to assassinate my character. So, that's a pretty hard pushback. Honestly, I don't think Mason Rudolph said it. And the reason is because if you're Mason Rudolph, you have to understand that the NFL picks up a lot of game sound and stuff on the field. So, for you to be 1,000% confident, if you did say it, that you could just lie like that in a tweet, I think Myles Garrett should just be very thankful that the situation wasn't any worse. And then Mike Tomlin comes out in support of Mason Rudolph in a strong statement. That was also the same day on February 15th, 2020, when the NFL released their report saying they didn't hear Mason Rudolph say anything during the game. So guys, once again, just looking back on this incident, I don't know, I was just thinking about it randomly, and it's just like I hear so much about these fights and stuff like that with people. Just randomly, it'll be a drunk guy punching someone else, and the dude will get paralyzed, and you get charged with that, man. If you're drunk and the other dude's drunk and you punch him and he dies or gets paralyzed, you're screwed. And let alone Myles Garrett in an NFL professional game on primetime, completely sober, swinging a helmet. I mean, what provoked Myles Garrett to do that? Like, if you watch the play, it definitely seemed like it was boiling up, it could not have just been that play to do it, because he tackled him and held him, and then he took his helmet, and then Mason Rudolph ran at Myles Garrett, and then that's when he swung, and Myles Garrett says, no, he called me the N-word, that's why it happened. No one really knows. This is a he said, she said type event. You would think if Mason Rudolph actually did say the N-word, Myles Garrett would come out that night that the event happened and say, the reason I did this, I know it was terrible, it was really bad, it was heat of the moment, he called me an N-word and I lost it. But Myles Garrett waited 4 or 5 months later, so I don't know, the whole situation is kind of shady. I think, this is not a good look for Myles Garrett, but this is the NFL, man. This is what happens. People do random crap all the time, and then it's just forgotten about. I mean, at this point, I just saw a tweet, and apparently Myles Garrett, if you look at PFF, is the highest graded edge defender over the last 2 years. That just kind of puts it into perspective to where in the NFL, as long as you like lay low after an event, as long as it's not like crazy, it'll just be forgotten about. And I knew when this happened, it kind of felt like people overreacted. That's one of the funny things, that once you actually have self-awareness on Twitter, so many people that use social media are so sheltered and just don't know how to react to situations as they unfold. So they'll immediately tweet, like, they'll just start pearl clutching and they'll be like, oh my God, he should be lifetime ban, everything. And it's like, calm down. Take a few minutes. You know, it's happened a few different times, and you'll notice whenever like a traumatic thing happens in just the regular world, when people tweet, some of the stuff they tweet is just so crazy because we're not used to having social media, and a lot of these people just can't handle it. And that's why Twitter is just so cancerous. But I mean, there were so many people calling for Myles Garrett to have a lifetime ban, which you could think of it one of two ways. When this happened, I was like laughing at it. It's pathetic, but I don't know. There is also a thing where it's like Myles Garrett did get really lucky that Mason Rudolph just kind of was okay. I mean, you know, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Sometimes a dude gets paralyzed. Sometimes you hit him in the wrong spot of the temple. You know, I guess it's the luck of the draw, right? But that's just a crazy situation that happened that I wanted to look back on and kind of reflect now that it's been a few years. The Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph Thursday Night Football helmet incident. So guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.